Living in a wooden shack near Yellowstone, the 13-year-old black boy collected firewood to keep his baby brother warm. When a luxury SUV stopped at his house the next day, no one expected the shocking offer inside. The crunch of Michael's worn boots against frozen dirt broke the morning silence. His back ached from carrying Tyler, but he couldn't leave his baby brother alone in their cold house. The 1-year-old's warm breath against his neck was the only comfort in the biting morning air. "Almost there, little man," Michael whispered, adjusting the makeshift baby carrier made from an old bed sheet. Tyler's only response was a quiet snuffle as he continued sleeping. The sun hadn't fully risen yet, casting long shadows through the pine trees. Michael's eyes scanned the ground for fallen branches thick enough to burn but light enough for him to carry. His hands, already rough from months of collecting firewood, gripped a sturdy branch. A sharp crack echoed through the trees as he broke it into manageable pieces. The sound made him wince, too loud for this early hour. He glanced over his shoulder at Tyler, but his brother slept on, undisturbed. The memory of last night's cold hit him hard. The ancient heating system in their wooden shack had finally given up with a wheeze and a clank, leaving them huddled under every blanket they owned. His mom's face when she realized they couldn't afford repairs was burned into his mind. "We'll figure something out," she'd said, but her voice shook. "We always do." Michael stacked another piece of wood in his arms. The pile was getting heavy, but he needed more. The temperature was dropping every night, and Tyler had started coughing. A car engine rumbled in the distance, probably early morning tourists heading into Yellowstone. The sound drew his attention to the main road, where he could see a family piling out of their SUV. A father helped his kids with their jackets, while their mother took photos. Michael turned away, focusing on his task. He'd gotten good at ignoring scenes like that. Instead, he counted the pieces of wood in his arms, 10 decent-sized branches. It would have to do for now. He could make another trip later. The walk back took longer, weighed down by wood and baby. Sweat dampened his red t-shirt despite the cold. Their house came into view, a small wooden structure that looked ready to collapse in a strong wind. But it was home. Inside, Michael carefully lowered Tyler into his playpen. The baby stirred but didn't wake. The house was freezing. Michael's breath came out in visible puffs as he quickly arranged the wood in their small fireplace. His hands shook slightly as he struck the match. The flame caught quickly. He'd learned how to build fires properly months ago. Soon, a small blaze crackled, pushing back the morning chill. "Okay, buddy," Michael said, turning to Tyler. "Time for breakfast." He warmed a bottle of formula using the heat from the fire, testing the temperature on his wrist just like his mom had taught him. Tyler's eyes finally opened at the smell of food. "Mama?" Tyler asked, reaching for the bottle. "Not yet," Michael answered, lifting his brother. "Mom's still at work. Just you and me for now." He settled into their worn couch, holding Tyler as he drank. The fire popped and crackled, slowly warming the small room. Michael's eyes felt heavy. He hadn't slept well, worried about the cold. The sound of tires on gravel jerked him awake. Through the window, he saw his mom's beat-up Honda pulling up. She climbed out slowly, her hotel cleaning uniform wrinkled from a 12-hour shift. "You're supposed to be sleeping," she said when she came in, but there was no real scolding in her voice. Just exhaustion. Couldn't sleep. Too cold. Michael shifted Tyler, who had fallen asleep again. "How was work?" His mom dropped her bag by the door. "They're cutting hours. Tourism's down with the wolf warnings." She rubbed her face. "They might let some people go." Michael's stomach tightened. "They can't fire you. You're the best cleaner they have. Being the best doesn't always matter, baby." She tried to smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Did Tyler eat?" "Just finished his bottle. Fire's going good, too." She came over to kiss both their heads. "What would I do without you?" Her voice caught slightly. Michael pretended not to notice the tears in her eyes. He stood carefully, laying Tyler in the playpen. "Get some sleep, Mom. I'll keep the fire going." She hugged him tight for a moment. "You're too grown up for 13, she whispered. After she disappeared into her room, Michael added another log to the fire. The wood supply was already running low. He'd need to go out again before dark. Through the window, he could see more tourist cars heading toward the park entrance. The sun was fully up now, glinting off their clean windshields. Some of them probably had working heaters. Tyler stirred in his sleep, and Michael tucked an extra blanket around him. The fire crackled steadily, but he knew it wouldn't last. In a few hours, he'd need to head back into the woods. His mom's words about the hotel echoed in his head. If she lost her job, he pushed the thought away. That was a problem for later. Right now, he needed to focus on keeping Tyler warm. Michael sat by the fire, watching the flames dance. His body ached for sleep, but his mind wouldn't quiet. Outside, the morning grew brighter. Tourists' cars continued to pass, and somewhere in the distance, a wolf howled. The TV buzzed with static before the local news cleared up. Michael adjusted the antenna, trying to get a better signal. Tyler played with wooden blocks on the floor nearby, occasionally knocking them together. Another wolf sighting near the residential areas, the reporter announced. Park rangers advise residents to avoid walking alone, especially during dawn and dusk hours. The camera panned to show fresh paw prints in mud. Big ones. Michael's hand tightened on the antenna. The pack has been moving closer to populated areas due to the harsh winter conditions, a park ranger explained on screen. We strongly recommend carrying bear spray and making noise while walking in wooded areas. Michael glanced at their empty kitchen counter. Bear spray wasn't in their budget. His mom emerged from her room, still looking tired despite her sleep. Any good news? More wolves, Michael said, finally giving up on the antenna. They're getting closer to the houses. She paused in making her coffee. Maybe you should stop collecting wood for a few days. We can use the electric heater. We can't afford the power bill. Michael picked up Tyler, who had started fussing. And it barely heats one room. His mom's shoulders slumped. She knew he was right. Tyler felt warm in his arms. Too warm. Michael pressed his lips to his brother's forehead, a trick his mom had taught him for checking temperature. Mom, he called, trying to keep his voice steady. I think he's got a fever. She rushed over, her own hands checking Tyler's face. He's burning up. She bit her lip. The cold must be getting to him. We need to keep him warm. Michael looked at their dwindling wood pile. 2, maybe 3 logs left. Not enough to last the night. I'll go get more wood, he said. Michael, no. The wolves dash. We need the heat. He handed Tyler to her. I'll be quick. Just one trip. She held Tyler close, conflict clear on her face. At least wait until it's fully light out. The morning dragged by slowly. Michael watched through the window as the sun climbed higher, casting shorter shadows through the trees. Tyler's fever didn't break, even with the children's Tylenol their mom found in her purse. At noon, Michael couldn't wait any longer. The last log was on the fire, and Tyler's cough was getting worse. I'm going now, he announced, pulling on his jacket. More people are out during lunch. It's safer. His mom paced with Tyler, who whimpered against her shoulder. 30 minutes, she said. That's all. If you're not back, I'm calling the Rangers. Deal? Michael headed for the door, then paused. Mom, we're going to be okay, right? She crossed the room and hugged him with her free arm. Of course we are. We got each other. The woods felt different in daylight. Tourist chatter carried from the main road, and birds called from the trees. Normal sounds. Safe sounds. Michael struck out toward his usual collecting spot, keeping his eyes on the ground. Fallen branches were harder to find now. Other residents had probably had the same idea about stocking up. A twig snapped somewhere behind him. He spun around, heart jumping, but saw nothing except trees and shadows. Just a rabbit, he muttered to himself. But he moved faster, gathering wood with shaking hands. The pile in his arms grew slowly. 1 branch, 2, 3. Not enough. Tyler needed the heat. He ventured a little deeper into the woods. The tourist sounds faded, replaced by the whisper of wind through pine needles. Something caught his eye, a thick branch, perfect for burning. As he bent to pick it up, he noticed the ground around it. Paw prints, fresh ones, pressed into a patch of soft dirt, just like the ones from the news. Michael's breath caught in his throat. The woods suddenly seemed too quiet. A bird burst from a nearby bush, making him jump. The wood clattered from his arms, loud in the silence. Stupid, he whispered, dropping to gather the scattered branches. Getting scared over nothing. But his hands wouldn't stop shaking, and the hair on the back of his neck stood up. Every shadow looked like a crouching predator. He worked faster, shoving branches under his arm without checking their size. The silence pressed in around him, broken only by his ragged breathing and the soft thud of wood against wood. Movement flickered at the edge of his vision. He froze, eyes straining to see through the trees. Nothing, but the feeling of being watched didn't go away. "Hey!" A sharp voice made him jump. "You okay there?" A hiker stood on the main trail, water bottle in hand. Michael hadn't realized how far he'd wandered from the path. "Fine," he called back, voice cracking. "Just getting firewood." The hiker frowned. "Be careful. Rangers said there's been wolf activity in this area." Michael nodded, already backing toward home. "Thanks." He walked faster once the hiker was out of sight, no longer caring if the wood was good quality. Every rustle made him twitch. The trees thinned out, revealing their house. His mom stood in the doorway, bouncing Tyler. "Thank God," she breathed when he got closer. "You're late." "Sorry." Michael dumped the wood by the door. "Got a bit turn around?" Tyler reached for him, face flushed with fever. Their mom shifted him to one arm and helped gather the wood. "This isn't enough," she said quietly. Michael looked at the small pile. She was right. With Tyler sick, they'd need more heat than usual. "I'll go back before dark," he said. "One more trip?" His mom opened her mouth to argue, then stopped as Tyler started coughing. A deep, wet sound that scared them both. "Be careful," she finally said. "Please." Michael spent the afternoon watching the sun track across the sky, knowing what he had to do, but dreading it. Tyler's fever didn't break, and the wood pile shrank steadily. At 4 o'clock, with the sun still up but sinking, he stood. "I'm going now," he said, "before it gets darker." His mom handed him her phone, an old flip model with barely any minutes left. "Take this. Call if anything feels wrong." Michael tucked the phone into his pocket. Tyler watched him from the couch, wrapped in blankets, eyes glassy with fever. "Back soon, little man," Michael promised. The woods looked different now, darker. The friendly afternoon light had turned gray and uncertain. He moved quickly, gathering only the driest branches he could find. Every sound made him jump. Every shadow looked like teeth and claws. The phone felt heavy in his pocket. One bar of signal. Not enough to feel safe. A low growl froze him in place. Michael turned slowly, would clutch to his chest like a shield. Nothing moved between the trees. But he knew what he'd heard. The growl came again, closer this time. And now he could feel it, eyes watching from the gathering shadows. Michael's heart hammered against his ribs. 30 feet to the nearest tree he could climb. 20 feet back to the main trail. Too far. Both options too far. A branch cracked behind him. "Run," his mind screamed, but his legs wouldn't move. The wolf stepped out of the shadows. Gray fur, yellow eyes, muscles rippling under thick winter coat. The wolf emerged fully from the trees, its head low, ears forward. Steam puffed from its nostrils in the cold air. It was bigger than Michael had imagined, its shoulder probably reaching his waist. Tyler shifted against his back, making a small sound. The wolf's ears twitched at the noise. "No, no, no," Michael whispered. His arms tightened around the firewood, as if the dead branches could protect them. The wolf took a step forward. Its paws made no sound on the forest floor. Those yellow eyes never left Michael's face. "Help!" Michael tried to shout, but it came out as barely more than a whisper. His throat had closed up with fear. The main trail might as well have been miles away. No hikers' voices reached them here. No car sounds. Nothing but his own breathing and Tyler's soft whimpers. "Hey!" Michael tried again, louder this time. "Get out of here!" The wolf's lips curled back, showing teeth as long as Michael's fingers. A low growl rumbled from its chest. Tyler started to cry. The sound hit Michael like a punch to the gut. His baby brother was strapped to his back, sick with fever, completely helpless. The wood clattered from Michael's arms as reality set in. This wasn't just about him anymore. "Show Tyler, please," he whispered, but the baby's cries grew louder, echoing through the trees. The wolf's growl deepened. It took another step forward, powerful muscles bunching under its fur. Michael's hand crept toward his pocket, toward his mom's phone. But he knew one wrong move, one sudden gesture, and the wolf would attack. "Good boy," he said, his voice shaking. "Good wolf. You don't want us. We're not food." The wolf's only response was another growl, louder this time. Its yellow eyes flicked to Tyler, drawn by the crying. "No!" The word burst from Michael's throat. "Look at me. Look at me, not him." His sudden shout made the wolf pause. Its ears flattened against its skull. Tyler's crying turned to screams. The sound bounced off the trees, surely carrying to the whole forest. Michael's mind raced. Would the noise attract more wolves? Or would it bring help? The wolf's muscles tensed. Michael recognized the pose from nature documentaries. It was preparing to spring. Time slowed down. Michael saw everything with crystal clarity. The last rays of sunlight filtering through the trees, the scattered firewood at his feet, Tyler's tears soaking into his shirt, the wolf's claws digging into the dirt. His mom's voice echoed in his head from years ago. "You're the man of the house now. You have to protect your brother." She'd said it the morning after their dad left, when Michael found her crying in the kitchen. He was 9 then, barely understanding what it meant. But he understood now. The wolf snarled, saliva dripping from its fangs. Michael's hand found a piece of firewood. The branch was thick and heavy, rough bark biting into his palm. "Tyler," he said, his voice steadier than he felt. "Hold on tight, buddy." The wolf's muscles bunched. Michael's fingers tightened on the branch. Time snapped back into normal speed as the wolf launched itself forward. Michael swung the branch with everything he had. Wood met flesh with a solid thunk. The wolf yelped, more in surprise than pain, and jumped back. "Help!" Michael screamed, really screamed this time. His voice echoed through the forest. "Somebody help us." The wolf shook its head, recovering from the blow. Its yellow eyes now blazed with fury. Michael's arms trembled from adrenaline and fear, but he kept the branch raised. Tyler's screams had turned to hiccuping sobs. "It's okay," Michael whispered, not sure if he was talking to Tyler or himself. "It's okay. We're okay." The wolf circled them slowly, looking for an opening. Michael turned with it, keeping the branch between them. His foot hit another piece of firewood. Without taking his eyes off the wolf, he kicked it closer, within easy reach. The wolf lunged again. Michael swung, but this time the animal was ready. It dodged the branch and snapped at Michael's leg. Teeth grazed his jeans. Michael stumbled backward, nearly falling. The branch slipped in his sweaty hands. "No!" He caught himself, gripping the wood tighter. "Stay back." His heart pounded so hard it hurt. Every breath burned in his lungs. How long could he keep this up? The wolf seemed to sense his fatigue. It pressed closer, forcing Michael to step back. His heel hit a tree root. Panic flared. He was running out of space. Tyler's crying had quieted to whimpers, but each small sound drew the wolf's attention. Michael could feel his brother's fever heat through his shirt. "Please," he whispered. To the wolf, to God, to anyone who might be listening. "Please." The wolf's muscles tensed again. Michael knew he wouldn't be able to dodge another attack. His arms felt like lead, the branch suddenly impossibly heavy. A distant engine sound caught his attention. A car on the main road. Help was so close, just out of reach. The wolf heard it too. Its ears swiveled toward the sound, then back to Michael. For a moment, indecision showed in its posture. Michael seized his chance. He swung the branch in a wide arc, yelling as loud as he could. The wolf jumped back, startled by the sudden noise and movement. "Get out of here!" Michael screamed. He grabbed another piece of firewood and threw it. "Go away!" The wolf retreated a few more steps, uncertain now. Michael's show of aggression had confused it. He threw another branch, then another. Each one missing, but that wasn't the point. Each throw was accompanied by another shout, each yell stronger than the last. The wolf backed up further, its ears flat against its head. "Leave us alone!" Michael's throat was raw from screaming, but he didn't stop. Couldn't stop. Something changed in the wolf's eyes. The predatory focus dimmed, replaced by wariness. Michael took a step forward, still shouting. The wolf took another step back. They stayed locked in that tableau for what felt like hours. Michael advancing inch by inch, the wolf retreating, neither taking their eyes off the other. Finally, after one last snarl, the wolf turned and loped into the trees. Michael's legs gave out. He collapsed to his knees, the branch falling from numb fingers. Tyler's small hand patted his head. Me? Me? Yeah, Michael gasped. Yeah, we're okay, Tyler. We're okay. His whole body shook as the adrenaline drained away. The reality of what had just happened hit him like a physical blow. A wolf. They just faced down a wolf. And somehow, impossibly, they were alive. The sound of another car engine snapped him back to the present. The sun had nearly set, painting the forest in deep shadows. Michael forced himself to his feet, legs trembling. The scattered firewood lay around him, but he couldn't bring himself to pick it up. Home, he said. We need to get home. He turned in the direction of their house and started walking. Each step was shaky, but he kept moving. Behind him, in the gathering darkness, a wolf howled. Michael walked faster, the sound of his pounding heart drowning out everything else. He didn't stop until their house came into view, lights blazing in the windows. His mom must have turned on every lamp they owned. Michael. She burst through the door before he reached it. Michael. I heard screaming. Are you Dash? Her voice cut off as she saw his face. In 3 quick steps, she reached them, wrapping both Michael and Tyler in her arms. What happened? She demanded. Are you hurt? Michael opened his mouth to answer, but no words came out. Instead, he started crying, deep, racking sobs that shook his whole body. His mom held him tighter, pulling them both inside. It's okay, she whispered. You're home now. You're safe. But even as she said it, Michael knew things weren't okay. Nothing would be okay until they figured out a way to keep warm without him risking his life in the woods. As if to emphasize the point, Tyler coughed, a harsh, wet sound that echoed in their small house. Michael wiped his eyes. Tomorrow, they'd have to figure something out. Tomorrow, they'd have to face their problems, but for now, he let his mom hold him, let himself be 13 instead of the man of the house, and tried not to think about yellow eyes watching from the darkness. The morning light hadn't touched the forest floor when Michael woke to Tyler's coughing. He sat up on their worn couch, where he'd fallen asleep still fully dressed, his muscles aching from yesterday's encounter. Me! Tyler called from his playpen, his voice raspy. Me up! Michael checked his brother's forehead. Still hot. The fire had died during the night, leaving only cold ashes. Just a minute, buddy. He looked at their wood pile, 3 small pieces left. Not enough. His mom appeared in her doorway, already in her cleaning uniform. I called in sick, she said. We need to figure this out. We need wood, Michael said, pulling on his boots. They felt heavier than yesterday. No. His mom's voice cracked like a whip. You're not going back out there. Then what? Michael gestured at Tyler, who coughed again. He's sick, Mom. We can't keep him warm with nothing. She ran her hands through her hair, unwashed and tangled. I'll call the Rangers. Maybe they can dash. And tell them what? Michael cut in. That we can't afford heat? They'll call social services. The words hung in the air between them. They both knew what that meant. Foster care, separation, Tyler taken away. His mom sank onto the couch, her uniform creasing. There has to be another way. Michael picked up Tyler, who curled against his chest, radiating fever heat. I'll be careful. Stay closer to the trail this time. Michael, please. She stood up, reaching for him. After yesterday was different. I went too deep in the woods. This time I'll stay where people can see me. She grabbed his arm. What if the wolf comes back? Michael's stomach clenched at the memory of yellow eyes and bared teeth. But Tyler coughed again, his small body shaking. It won't, he lied. And if it does, I'll run. I promise. She stared at him for a long moment, then walked to the kitchen. When she came back, she held a large kitchen knife. Take this. She pressed it into his hand. And take my phone. The knife felt wrong in his grip. Too big, too real. But he tucked it into his belt and covered it with his jacket. 30 minutes, she said. That's all? Michael nodded, adjusting Tyler in the makeshift carrier. 30 minutes. The forest looked different in the early morning light. Shadows stretched long and dark between the trees, and frost coated the fallen leaves. Michael walked quickly, staying within sight of the main trail. Every few steps, he looked over his shoulder, checking the spaces between trees. Tyler had fallen quiet, lulled by the walking. His fever seemed worse, his small body burning against Michael's back. A branch lay across their path, thick and dry, perfect for burning. Michael bent to pick it up, his fingers trembling slightly. Movement caught his eye. He straightened up fast, the branch clutched to his chest. Nothing. Just leaves stirring in the morning breeze. It's fine, he whispered to himself. Everything's fine. He gathered more wood, working fast. Each piece added to the weight in his arms, but he needed more. Always more. A twig snapped behind him. Michael spun around, wood clattering to the ground. His heart stopped. The wolf stood 20 feet away, its gray fur almost silver in the morning light. The same wolf from yesterday. He recognized the scar across its muzzle. No, Michael breathed. No, no, no. The wolf's yellow eyes fixed on him. Its lips pulled back, showing teeth that seemed even longer in daylight. Michael's hand moved to the knife at his belt. The handle felt slick with his sweat. Tyler stirred, making a small sound of complaint. The wolf's ears pricked forward. Don't, Michael whispered. He stepped backward, keeping his movement slow. Please don't. The wolf matched his retreat, step for step. Steam puffed from its nostrils in the cold air. Michael's back at a tree. The rough bark caught at his jacket. The wolf lowered its head, muscles bunching under its thick fur. A low growl rumbled from its chest. Memory flashed through Michael's mind, his dad walking out the door, suitcase in hand. Michael calling after him, begging him to stay. His dad never looking back. Not again, Michael said aloud. I'm not letting anyone else leave Tyler. The wolf took another step forward. Closer now. Close enough that Michael could smell its wild, musky scent. His fingers closed around the knife handle. The blade seemed tiny compared to the wolf's teeth. Tyler whimpered, pressing his face into Michael's neck. The sound snapped something in Michael's chest. Back off, he shouted, pulling the knife free. The blade caught the morning light, flashing. The wolf hesitated, yellow eyes tracking the metal. Michael used the moment to slide away from the tree, keeping the knife between them. His other hand gripped a piece of firewood. I'm not afraid of you, he lied, his voice shaking. Get out of here. The wolf's growl deepened. It paced to the side, trying to circle around behind him. Michael turned with it, keeping Tyler away from those snapping jaws. Sweat ran down his back despite the cold. Help! He screamed toward the trail. Somebody help us? His voice echoed through the trees. No answer came. The wolf lunged forward, teeth flashing. Michael swung the piece of wood, catching it across the nose. The animal yelped, jumping back. Blood dotted its muzzle. Michael's arms trembled. The wolf shook its head, eyes now blazing with fury. Me? Tyler's voice quavered. Me scared. It's okay, Michael said, not taking his eyes off the wolf. Big brother's got you. The words tasted like his father's lies. But Michael meant them. Had to mean them. The wolf gathered itself, preparing to spring. Michael raised the knife higher. Time stretched like taffy. Michael saw everything with crystal clarity. Frost melting on dead leaves. Tyler's tears soaking his collar. Blood dripping from the wolf's nose. Then time snapped back as the wolf attacked. Michael swung the knife and branched together, yelling. The wolf's teeth snapped inches from his leg. They broke apart, circling. The wolf's growl had turned to a snarl, constant and terrifying. Michael's arms ached from holding the weapons up. How long could he keep this up? Please, he whispered. To the wolf, to God, to anyone listening. Please help us. The wolf's muscles tensed again. Michael braced himself for another attack. But it didn't come. Instead, the wolf's ears swiveled toward something behind Michael. He didn't dare look. It could be help coming, or it could be more wolves. The wolf's yellow eyes stayed locked on his face. Its snarl grew louder. Michael's legs shook from fear and exhaustion. The knife felt heavier with each passing second. Tyler started crying again, loud sobs that echoed through the trees. The wolf's eyes snapped to the sound. No! Michael roared. He stepped forward, swinging both knife and branch. Look at me. The wolf retreated a step, startled by his aggression. But its gaze kept darting to Tyler. Michael knew he had to end this. One way or another. He took another step forward, screaming wordlessly. The wolf's ears flattened against its skull. "Get away from my brother!" The words tore from his throat, raw and primal. He advanced again, weapons raised. Something changed in the wolf's eyes. The predatory focus wavered. Michael screamed again, swinging the branch. The wolf backed up another step. They stood frozen like that, Michael trembling but advancing, the wolf retreating but still snarling. The standoff stretched for what felt like hours. Neither moved. Neither looked away. Then, somewhere in the distance, an engine roared to life. The wolf's head snapped toward the sound. For just a moment, its attention broke. Michael seized his chance. He rushed forward, yelling at the top of his lungs, swinging both weapons. The wolf jumped back, startled by the sudden attack. Its back paw slipped on wet leaves. That moment of uncertainty was all Michael needed. He pressed forward, still screaming. The wolf backed up faster now, its snarl turning uncertain. Its eyes darted between Michael and the trail. "Leave us alone!" Michael's voice cracked, but he didn't stop. Couldn't stop. The wolf took one last look at him, then turned and bounded into the trees. Michael's legs gave out. He collapsed to his knees, the knife and branch falling from numb fingers. Tyler patted his head. "Me? Me okay?" "Yeah," Michael gasped, his whole body shaking. "Yeah, we're okay. We're okay." The moment of relief didn't last. A deep growl cut through the morning air, closer than before. Michael scrambled to his feet, snatching up the knife. The wolf emerged from the trees again, and this time it wasn't alone. A second wolf, larger than the first, flanked it. Both animals moved with deadly purpose, cutting off the path back to the trail. "No," Michael whispered. "Please no." Tyler's fingers dug into his shoulders. The baby had gone quiet, too quiet, like he sensed the danger. The first wolf, blood still staining its muzzle, took a step forward. Its companion mirrored the movement. Michael backed up slowly, his boots crunching on frozen leaves. The knife trembled in his grip. "Mom," he screamed. "Somebody, help us!" His voice echoed through the trees. The wolves didn't even flinch. The larger wolf's muscles bunched. Michael recognized the pose. It was going to attack. Time slowed down. He saw everything with painful clarity. Tyler's tears freezing on his neck, the steam from the wolf's breath, the way their claws dug into the frozen ground. Then the large wolf sprang. Michael swung the knife wildly. The blade caught sunlight, momentarily blinding him. Sharp teeth snapped inches from his face. He stumbled backward, nearly falling. The second wolf lunged while he was off balance. Michael kicked out blindly, his boot connecting with something solid. A yelp, then more growling, angrier now. "Stay back." His voice cracked. "Just stay back." The wolves circled him, moving in perfect sync. Every time he faced one, the other crept closer to his blind spot. Tyler started crying again. The sound echoed through the trees, drawing the wolves' attention. "No!" Michael spun in a circle, trying to keep both animals in view. "Look at me." "Not him." The larger wolf fainted forward. When Michael jerked back, the smaller one attacked from behind. Pain exploded in his calf. Teeth ripped through his jeans into flesh. Michael screamed. The knife came down automatically, striking the wolf's shoulder. The animal released him with a yelp. Blood, his blood, stained its teeth. "Me!" Tyler wailed. "Me hurt." "It's okay," Michael gasped, though nothing was okay. "I've got you, buddy. I've got you." His leg throbbed. Warm blood soaked his sock. The wolves regrouped, their yellow eyes blazing with hunger and fury. The one he'd stabbed limped slightly, but its snarl was deeper than ever. Michael's vision blurred with tears of pain and fear. The knife felt heavier with each passing second. A memory flashed through his mind. His mom teaching him to make Tyler's bottles. "You have to test the temperature," she'd said. "You're responsible for him now." Responsible. The word echoed in his head. The larger wolf tensed to spring again. Michael planted his feet, ignoring the fire in his calf. Come on then, he screamed. Come on. The wolf launched itself at him. This time Michael was ready. He dropped and rolled, pulling Tyler tight against his chest. The wolf sailed over them, landing awkwardly. Michael slashed upward with the knife. The blade caught the second wolf's chest as it tried to attack. More yelps, more blood, theirs and his mixing on the frozen ground. He struggled to his feet, leg threatening to buckle. The wolves circled again, but their movements were warier now. That's right, Michael panted. I'm not easy prey. Tyler's crying had turned to hiccups. The sound tore at Michael's heart, gave him strength he didn't know he had. The wolves attacked together this time. Michael met them with knife and fist and desperate fury. Everything became a blur of teeth and claws and flashing metal. He stopped thinking, running on pure instinct. Block, slash, dodge, protect Tyler. That was all that mattered. Minutes stretched like hours. His arms burned. Blood ran down his leg. A lucky swing caught the larger wolf across the nose. It backed off, shaking its head. The smaller one tried to circle behind him again. Michael kicked out with his good leg, connecting solidly. More yelps. More blood. Get out of here, he screamed. Leave us alone. His voice was raw, barely human. He swung the knife in wild arcs, not caring if he hit anything. Something changed in the wolf's eyes. The predatory focus wavered, replaced by uncertainty. They'd never faced prey that fought back like this, that refused to run or submit. Michael saw the moment their resolve broke. The larger wolf backed up first, ears flattening. Yeah. He advanced on them, still swinging. Run! Get out of here! The smaller wolf retreated a step. Then another. Michael screamed again, wordless, primal. The sound echoed through the trees like something wild. The wolves broke. They turned and ran, vanishing into the forest. Michael waited, knife raised, listening for any sign of their return. Nothing. Just the sound of his own ragged breathing and Tyler's quiet sobs. His leg gave out. He collapsed to his knees, catching himself with one hand. Me? Tyler's small hand patted his face. Me okay? Yeah, Michael whispered. Yeah, we're okay now. We're okay. But they weren't okay. His leg was still bleeding, and they were far from the trail. He tried to stand. Pain shot up his calf, making him gasp. Help, he called again. Please, somebody help us. This time, an answer came. Hello. A distant voice. Is someone there? Here. Michael's voice cracked. We're here. Please help. Footsteps crashed through the underbrush. A man in a park ranger uniform burst into view, radio in hand. Oh my God. The ranger rushed forward. Are you hurt? What happened? Wolves, Michael managed. 2 of them. My brother. This is Anderson. The ranger spoke into his radio. I need medical at the East Trail entrance. Juvenile with injuries, possible wolf attack. And get animal control out here. More voices approached. More rangers. Tyler okay? Michael asked as hands helped him lie back. Please check Tyler. The baby's fine, someone assured him. Not a scratch on him. You kept him safe. Michael closed his eyes, relief flooding through him. He'd done it. He'd protected Tyler. You're gonna need stitches, another voice said. But you're lucky. Could have been much worse. Lucky. Michael almost laughed. A familiar voice cut through the others. Michael! Baby, where are you? Mom? He tried to sit up. She appeared above him, tears streaming down her face. Oh God, Michael. My baby. I'm sorry, he whispered as she gathered him in her arms. I had to get wood. Tyler was cold. Sure. She held him tighter. You're okay. That's all that matters. But even as she said it, Michael knew things had changed. The wolves might be gone, but their problems remained. Tyler still needed heat. They still couldn't afford repairs. And now, with his leg torn up, how would he help? The sound of more vehicles approaching pulled him from his thoughts. Ambulance sirens wailed in the distance. Ma'am, a ranger said gently. We need to get him to the hospital? His mom nodded, wiping her eyes. Of course. Yes. As they lifted him onto a stretcher, Michael caught a glimpse of movement in the trees. Yellow eyes watched from the shadows. But this time, they didn't approach. The wolves had learned, and so had he. He was more than just prey. He was a protector. The thought followed him into unconsciousness as the ambulance doors closed, shutting out the forest and its dangers. The hospital lights buzzed overhead, too bright and too white. Michael lay on the emergency room bed, watching a nurse clean the bite wounds on his leg. "You're very lucky," she said, dabbing antiseptic that stung like fire. "Wolf bites can be much worse." Tyler sat in their mom's lap in a chair beside the bed, finally sleeping. The fever medication the doctors had given him was working. "How bad is it?" his mom asked, her voice rough from crying. 12 stitches, the nurse replied, "and we'll start rabies shots as a precaution. But he'll heal." Michael winced as she wrapped fresh bandages around his calf. His jeans, cut away by the paramedics, lay ruined on the floor. A knock at the door made them all look up. 2 men in ranger uniforms entered, their faces serious. "Mrs. Johnson?" the taller one asked. "I'm Chief Ranger Roberts. This is Deputy Collins. We need to ask your son some questions." Michael's mom stood, shifting Tyler to her shoulder. "He's been through enough today." "Mom," Michael said quietly. "It's okay." Roberts pulled up a chair while Collins stayed by the door, notebook in hand. "Can you tell us exactly what happened?" Roberts asked. Michael told them everything. The broken heater, collecting wood, the first wolf encounter, then today's attack. His voice shook sometimes, but he kept going. "You fought off 2 wolves?" Collins interrupted. "With a kitchen knife?" "Had to," Michael said. "Tyler was with me." Roberts and Collins exchanged looks. "That's incredibly brave," Roberts said. "And incredibly dangerous. Why were you collecting wood in wolf territory?" Michael's mom stepped forward. "That's my fault. I can't afford dash no." Michael cut her off. "It's not your fault. We just needed heat." Silence filled the room. The nurse finished bandaging his leg and left quietly. Roberts leaned forward in his chair. "Mrs. Johnson, is your heating system broken?" She nodded, not meeting his eyes. "And you can't afford repairs?" "I work at the Mountain View Hotel," she said. "Cleaning rooms are cutting hours, and with winter coming..." Her voice trailed off. Michael saw tears in her eyes again. "I see." Roberts wrote something in his notebook. "And you live in the old Carson cabin? Near the East Trail?" "Yes." Her voice was barely a whisper. Collins stepped forward. "Chief, the camera's dash, right?" Roberts stood up. "Mrs. Johnson, we need to show you something. Would you come with us?" "I'm not leaving my children. Just to the nurse's station. It'll take 5 minutes." She hesitated, then handed Tyler to Michael. The baby stirred but didn't wake. Michael watched them leave, holding his brother close. Tyler's fever had broken, but he could still feel the lingering warmth. Through the window, he saw them gathered around a computer screen. His mom's hand flew to her mouth. "What do you think that's about?" he asked Tyler. The baby just sighed in his sleep. They returned a few minutes later. His mom's eyes were red, but she was smiling. "Michael," Robert said, "we have security cameras along the trails. They caught both of your encounters with the wolves." Michael's stomach tightened. "Am I in trouble?" "Trouble?" Roberts laughed. "Son, you're a hero. Those cameras caught you protecting your brother against impossible odds. Twice. The footage is incredible," Collins added. "Never seen anything like it." "We've been having problems with that wolf pack," Roberts continued. "They're too comfortable around humans. We've been trying to hire more rangers to handle it. But our budget..." He trailed off, looking at Michael thoughtfully. "The thing is," Robert said slowly, "we need people who understand these woods, who respect them, but aren't afraid to stand their ground when needed." Michael's mom stepped forward. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying we have an opening. Full-time ranger position. Housing included. One of the park cabins. Better salary than the hotel, plus benefits." The room went silent. Michael looked at his mom, hardly daring to breathe. "Are you?" She swallowed hard. "Are you offering me a job?" "You need training, of course," Robert said. "But yes, someone who raised a son like this, that's exactly who we need." Michael watched his mom's face cycle through disbelief, hope, and fear. "I don't have any experience," she whispered. "You have a son who faced down wolves to protect his brother," Roberts replied. "That tells me everything I need to know about your family's character." Tyler chose that moment to wake up, blinking at the room full of people. "Me?" he asked, reaching for Michael's face. Home? Soon, buddy, Michael answered, his voice thick. Maybe somewhere better. His mom sat on the edge of the hospital bed, taking both their hands. Are you sure about this? She asked Roberts. The cabin needs some work, he admitted. But it has a new heating system, and it's closer to the ranger station. Michael squeezed his mom's hand. She squeezed back. When can I start? Roberts smiled. Training begins Monday. We'll help you move this weekend. After they left, Michael lay back against the pillows, suddenly exhausted. The pain medication was making him drowsy. Get some rest, his mom said, taking Tyler. We're staying here tonight, then home tomorrow. Home, Michael mumbled. No more wood collecting? No more wood collecting. She kissed his forehead. You did good, baby. You did so good. He drifted off to sleep, but not before he heard her whisper, my brave, brave boy. The next morning his leg ached, but the doctor cleared him to leave. They gave him crutches and strict instructions to rest. As they waited for the discharge papers, a nurse wheeled in a TV showing the local news. Our top story today, the anchor announced, a remarkable act of bravery in Yellowstone National Park. The screen showed grainy security footage of Michael facing down the wolves, Tyler strapped to his back. A 13-year-old boy fought off 2 wolves while protecting his baby brother, the anchor continued. The incident has sparked discussions about wildlife management and poverty in park-adjacent communities. They showed Roberts being interviewed. This young man's courage is extraordinary. But the real story here is why a child felt compelled to risk his life for basic necessities like heat. Michael turned away from the TV, embarrassed by the attention. Ready to go home? His mom asked, helping him with the crutches. Yeah. He adjusted his grip. To the new home? To the new home. She smiled. No more cold nights? They wheeled him out to Roberts' truck. The chief ranger had insisted on driving them himself. As they pulled away from the hospital, Michael caught a glimpse of the forest through the window. Somewhere in those trees, a wolf pack roamed, but they weren't his problem anymore. Tyler babbled happily in his car seat, reaching for the sunlight streaming through the windows. Me. I see it, buddy. Michael smiled. I see it. Their mom reached back to squeeze his hand. Her eyes were bright with tears again, but this time they were happy ones. Michael leaned back in his seat, feeling the warmth of the truck's heater on his face. They had heat. They had a future. They had each other. And sometimes he realized that's all the courage you need. The morning sun had barely cleared the mountains when the black SUV pulled up to their wooden shack. Michael watched through the window, his leg propped up on the couch, as 3 more ranger vehicles followed. Mom, he called, his voice still hoarse from yesterday's screaming. More rangers are here. She emerged from Tyler's room, the baby on her hip. Dark circles ringed her eyes. She hadn't slept much last night. Already? She smoothed her hair nervously. They said they wouldn't start moving us until tomorrow. A knock at the door made them both jump. Tyler squealed and reached toward the sound. Chief Roberts stood on their porch, flanked by 4 other rangers. A camera crew lingered by the vehicles. Mrs. Johnson, Roberts said, removing his hat. Michael, we need to show you something. One of the rangers carried a laptop. They set it up on the rickety kitchen table while Michael hobbled over on his crutches. This is from our security cameras, Roberts explained, pulling up a video file. We installed them last month after the first wolf sightings. The footage was grainy but clear enough. Michael watched himself on screen, Tyler strapped to his back, facing down the first wolf. There's more, Roberts said quietly. The second video showed yesterday's attack. Michael flinched as he watched the wolves circle him, saw himself fighting with the kitchen knife. Jesus, one of the rangers muttered. Kid's got guts. His mom's hand found his shoulder, squeezing tight. The thing is, Roberts continued, closing the laptop, this footage has already gone viral. Local news picked it up this morning. National networks are calling. Michael's stomach dropped. I don't want to be on TV. You don't have to be. Roberts waved at the camera crew through the window. But your story, it's making people ask questions. Important ones. What kind of questions? His mom asked. Why a 13-year-old boy had to risk his life collecting firewood. Why families living next to one of America's richest national parks can't afford basic heating. Michael shifted on his crutches. The stitches in his leg itched. The park superintendent is on his way, Roberts said. He wants to meet you both. As if on cue, another vehicle appeared, a gleaming silver SUV with government plates. Sarah, Roberts said gently to Michael's mom, this could change everything. The superintendent was a tall man in an expensive suit. He filled their small living room with his presence. Michael, he said, extending his hand. I'm James Morrison. What you did was extraordinary. Michael shook his hand awkwardly, balancing on his good leg. I just protected my brother. That's exactly what makes it extraordinary. Morrison turned to Michael's mom. Mrs. Johnson, I understand you work at the Mountain View Hotel? Yes, sir. In housekeeping? Morrison nodded. Minimum wage, no benefits, seasonal work? Like most jobs around here. She said nothing, but her grip on Tyler tightened. Chief Roberts tells me he offered you a ranger position. Yes, sir. Starting Monday. Morrison smiled. Good, but I'd like to sweeten the deal. He pulled out a tablet, showing them photos of a cabin. Not their future ranger cabin, something bigger, newer. This is our old visitor center manager's house, he explained. It's been empty since she retired. 3 bedrooms, full heating system, right next to the ranger station. Michael's mom gasped softly. The job offer still stands, Morrison continued. But instead of the basic ranger cabin, I'm offering you this. Same deal, part of your compensation package. Sir, she whispered, that's too much. No. Morrison's voice was firm. What's too much is a child facing wolves, because we don't pay living wages. What's too much is families freezing in the shadow of a park that makes millions in revenue. He stood straightening his jacket. Your son's viral video forced us to look at some uncomfortable truths. This is the least we can do to start fixing them. Tyler reached for Morrison's shiny watch, giggling. The superintendent let him grab his finger instead. Sweet kid, he said softly. Looks like his brother. When? Michael's mom asked. When can we move? Today if you want. Roberts has a crew ready. She looked around their small house. At the cold fireplace, the patched walls, the worn furniture. Today, she said, please. The next few hours passed in a blur. Rangers and volunteers packed their few belongings into boxes. News crews gathered outside, held back by park police. Michael sat on the couch, feeling useless with his injured leg. Tyler napped beside him, worn out from all the excitement. Me, his brother mumbled in his sleep. Me home. Yeah, buddy. Michael stroked his hair. New home today. A commotion outside drew his attention. Through the window, he saw more vehicles arriving, but not official ones this time. Hotel maids in their uniforms, gas station workers. Waitresses from the diner, all carrying boxes, bags, supplies. The community wants to help, Roberts explained, carrying in donated groceries. Your story touched a lot of people. Michael watched his mom break down crying when her co-workers presented her with new bedding sets, kitchen supplies, even toys for Tyler. We've all been there, one maid said, hugging her. One bad month away from disaster. It's time things changed. By afternoon, their old house stood empty. Michael took one last look around before Roberts helped him to the truck. The wooden walls held 4 years of memories, good and bad. The floor still showed scuff marks from Tyler learning to crawl. The window still had the crack from that storm last winter. Ready? His mom asked, holding Tyler. Michael nodded. Ready? As they drove away, he glanced in the side mirror. Their old house disappeared behind the trees. Movement caught his eye, a flash of gray fur between the pines. The wolf stood at the forest's edge, watching their departure. Michael held its gaze until the truck turned a corner. A strange feeling settled in his chest. Not fear this time, but something like respect. They pulled up to their new home 20 minutes later. Michael stared in amazement. The house was beautiful. Wooden siding painted dark green, a wraparound porch, large windows letting in the afternoon sun. This is ours, he whispered. This is yours, Roberts confirmed, helping him up the porch steps. Inside, the house smelled of fresh paint and pine. Central heating hummed quietly, filling every room with warmth. 3 bedrooms upstairs, Morrison said, appearing in the doorway. We had the maintenance crew check everything this morning. Heating system's perfect. Michael's mom set Tyler down. The baby immediately crawled toward the sunny spot on the living room carpet. I don't know how to thank you, she said. Thank your son? Morrison nodded at Michael. His courage did more than save his brother. It's helping us fix a broken system. He handed her a thick envelope. Contract keys, employee handbook. Training starts Monday, but take tomorrow to settle in. After Morrison left, their helpers slowly trickled away. The house filled with evening shadows as the sun set behind the mountains. Michael sat in the living room window seat, an actual window seat, watching the last cars leave. Tyler had fallen asleep on their new couch, clutching a stuffed wolf toy someone had brought. You okay? His mom asked, sitting beside him. Yeah. He shifted his bandaged leg. Just feels weird, like I'm going to wake up back in the old house. She pulled him close, kissing the top of his head. You did this, she whispered. You saved us. Not just from the wolves. Michael watched the forest darken beyond their yard. Somewhere out there, a pack of wolves roamed. But in here, they were warm. They were safe. They were home. Get some rest, his mom said. Tomorrow's a new day. A new day in a new house with no more collecting wood. No more cold nights. No more fear. Michael closed his eyes, feeling the warmth of the heater on his face. They'd survive the wolves. They'd survive whatever came next. Together. 1 week later, Michael sat on their new porch, watching the sunrise over the trees. His legs still ached, but the doctor said the stitches could come out soon. The sound of boots on wooden steps made him turn. Chief Roberts approached, 2 cups of coffee in hand. Little early to be up, Roberts said, offering Michael a cup of hot chocolate. How's the leg? Better. Michael took a sip. Mom already left for training? Yep. She's doing great. Natural talent for tracking. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the morning fog lift from the forest. A deer picked its way through their yard, unafraid. Different from your old view, huh? Roberts asked. Michael nodded. Everything was different now. The house stayed warm without fires. Their fridge stayed full. Tyler slept through the night in his own room. Look, Roberts said suddenly. There's something I want to show you. He pulled out his phone, bringing up a video. Michael recognized the grainy security footage of his wolf encounters. We use these videos in training now, Roberts explained, teaching new rangers about wildlife behavior. About courage. Michael shifted uncomfortably. I was just scared. Being scared doesn't matter. What you do while you're scared. That's what counts. The screen showed Michael facing down the wolves, protecting Tyler. His voice echoed from the phone speaker. Look at me. Not him. You know what I see there? Roberts asked. A born ranger. Michael looked up sharply. What? In 4 years, when you're 17, there's a junior ranger program. If you're interested. Hope fluttered in Michael's chest. Really? Really? Roberts pocketed his phone. Something to think about. Inside the house, Tyler's cry broke the morning quiet. Michael started to get up, but Roberts put a hand on his shoulder. I got him. Rest that leg. Michael watched through the window as Roberts lifted Tyler from his crib. His brother had gotten used to the rangers who now filled their lives. No longer shy around uniforms, me. Tyler called when they came outside. Me, look. He held up his stuffed wolf, now his constant companion. Michael smiled at the irony. Your mom's learning wolf tracking today, Roberts said, settling Tyler on the porch. Want to see some basics? He pulled out a manual, showing Michael photos of paw prints, scat patterns, territorial markings. The pack that attacked you has moved deeper into the park, he explained. But we're keeping tabs on them. Michael studied the tracking signs with intense focus. He'd seen some of these before, but hadn't known what they meant. Can I? He hesitated. Can I come watch the training sometime? Roberts smiled. Doctor clears your leg. You can do more than watch. Your mom's already asked if you can sit in. Tyler crawled into Michael's lap, babbling happily. The stuffed wolf dangled from his hand. He's not scared, Michael observed. After everything, kids are resilient. Like their big brother. The sound of vehicles approaching made them look up. 2 ranger trucks pulled into the driveway. That'll be the maintenance crew, Roberts said. They're installing security cameras today. Michael watched the uniformed men unload equipment. A week ago, they'd been strangers. Now they waved and called him by name. Chief, one of them jogged up. Got a wildlife report for you. Bear signs near the South Trail. On it, Robert stood. Want to see how we handle this, Michael? Michael grabbed his crutches. Can I? Observation only, Roberts warned. And Tyler stays with Nancy at the station. Tyler went happily to the ranger station's daycare, where other staff kids played. No more worried goodbyes. No more fear of the cold. In the command center, Michael watched Roberts coordinate the response team. Radio chatter filled the room as rangers positioned themselves along the trail. See how we set up a perimeter? Roberts explained. Control the situation before it becomes dangerous. Michael nodded, absorbing everything. Different from his desperate fight in the woods, but the core was the same, protecting people. Chief, a voice crackled over the radio. Got eyes on the bear. Young male, probably looking for food. Roberts keyed his mic. Keep tourists clear. Johnson, you're up with the deterrent rounds. Michael's chest swelled with pride. That was his mom out there doing her job. Copy that. Her voice came back steady and strong. Moving into position. They listened as she helped drive the bear away from the trails, back into safe territory. Nice work, rookie, Roberts praised when she returned. Textbook response. She hugged Michael, smelling of pine needles and gunpowder. How's the leg? Good. I watched everything. The tracking, the perimeter setup. She smiled at his enthusiasm. Maybe we'll have 2 rangers in the family someday. The rest of the day passed in a blur of activity. Michael absorbed every detail of ranger operations, from wildlife management to tourist safety. By evening, he was exhausted but happy. They picked up Tyler, who proudly showed them the pine cone art he'd made. Home now? He asked, reaching for Michael. Yeah, buddy. Home. Their new house glowed warmly in the twilight. Security cameras stood sentinel, but they didn't feel like prison guards. More like watchful protectors. Inside, the heating system purred quietly. No more chopping wood. No more freezing nights. Bath time, their mom announced, scooping up Tyler. Then dinner. The crew brought lasagna. Michael sat at their kitchen table. A real table, not the wobbly card table from before. His leg ached, but it was healing. Through the window, he watched the forest darken. A week ago, those shadows had held terror. Now, they held possibility. Robert's words echoed in his head. A born ranger. Maybe the wolves had given him more than scars. Maybe they'd shown him his future. Tyler's laughter echoed from the bathroom, followed by splashing sounds and their mom's playful scolding. Normal sounds. Safe sounds. Family sounds. Michael opened the ranger manual Roberts had left him. For years wasn't so long to wait. Until then, he had a warm house, a healing leg, and a family that was finally truly safe. The sound of wolves howling drifted through the night. But now, in their new home, surrounded by their new community, the howls weren't threatening. They were just another voice in the chorus of the forest. A reminder of the wild that had changed their lives. Michael turned back to his manual, reading by the warm light of their living room lamp. Outside, the cameras kept watch, the rangers patrolled, and his mom's truck sat ready for tomorrow's duties. They weren't just surviving anymore. They were living, growing, transforming. And somewhere in the darkness, a pack of wolves roamed their territory, unaware that they'd set this change in motion. Michael touched his healing leg, feeling the stitches through his jeans. Every scar told a story. His would tell of the day he stopped being a victim of circumstance and became something more. A protector, a survivor, and maybe, someday, a ranger. 1 month after the wolf attack, Michael stood at his bedroom window, watching his mom lead her first official tour group. Her ranger uniform fit perfectly now, no longer looking new and stiff on her shoulders. See the tracks here? Her voice carried up to his window. Wolf prints, probably from last night. They're not a threat if we respect their space. The tourists clustered around her, cameras clicking. No fear in their postures, just curiosity. His mom pointed out details in the prints, explaining territorial patterns. Me! Tyler's voice called from downstairs. Down? Michael grabbed his cane. No more crutches needed, and made his way down. His leg had healed well, though the scars would always remain. Tyler stood at the baby gate, bouncing with excitement. Through the living room window, they could see their mom's tour group moving toward the trail. "Mama work," Tyler said proudly, clutching his ever-present stuffed wolf. "That's right, buddy." Michael lifted him up. "Want to watch from the porch?" The morning air still held autumn's chill, but nothing like the bone-deep cold of their old house. Michael settled into one of the porch chairs, Tyler on his lap. "Johnson, you copy?" His mom's radio crackled from its charging station by the door. "Go ahead." Her voice came back clear and professional. "Got reports of wolf activity near your position. Pack of 3, moving northeast." Michael tensed slightly, but his mom's response was calm. "Copy that. Moving my group to the observation point. We might get lucky with a sighting." A few minutes later, Michael saw them emerge on the ridge trail. The tourists lined up along the safety rail, while his mom set up a spotting scope. Movement in the trees below caught his attention. Gray shapes slipped between the pines. 3 wolves, just as reported. "There they are," Michael whispered to Tyler. His brother pressed closer, not afraid but fascinated. "Wolfies?" "Yeah, buddy. Real ones." The wolves paused at the edge of the clearing. Michael recognized the scarred one that had first attacked them. It looked different now, not a monster, just an animal protecting its territory. Through binoculars Roberts had given him, Michael watched the pack. Their movements told stories he was learning to read: hunting patterns, social dynamics, survival strategies. "And here we have a remarkable sight," his mom's voice carried on the morning air. "A local pack doing their morning patrol. Notice how they move together, coordinated." The tourists murmured in appreciation. No one ran. No one panicked. This was what rangers did, Michael had learned. They didn't just protect people from wildlife. They helped people understand it. The radio crackled again. "Johnson, how's your group doing?" "Perfect visibility," she replied. "Pack is showing textbook behavior." "Good teaching moment?" "Copy that. You're a natural at this." Pride swelled in Michael's chest. A month ago, they'd been struggling to survive. Now his mom was teaching others about the very creatures that had nearly killed them. Tyler pointed at the wolves. "Mama teach." "Yes, she does." Michael hugged him closer. "She teaches people about wolves now." The pack moved on, disappearing into the forest. The tour group followed his mom toward the next stop. Inside the house, the phone rang. Michael carried Tyler in, noting how easily he could walk now. "Hello." "Michael, it's Roberts. Doctor's office called. You're cleared for full activity." Michael's heart jumped. "Really? Really? Want to start those junior ranger lessons we talked about?" "Yes." He caught himself, trying to sound more professional. "Yes, sir." Roberts laughed. "Pick you up at 2. We'll start with tracking basics." After hanging up, Michael could barely contain his excitement. He'd been studying the manuals, learning everything he could while stuck on light duty. "Guess what, Tyler? I'm going to learn to be a ranger too. Like Mama?" "Like Mama?" They spent the morning watching nature documentaries, Tyler's new favorite thing. The baby pointed out every wolf, every tracked animal, copying the way their mom explained things to tourists. At one point, Tyler brought Michael his stuffed wolf. Scary before. Not now. Michael stared at his brother, surprised by the observation. "That's right. Not scary anymore." "Why?" Michael thought about it. "Because we understand them better now. And we're stronger." Tyler nodded like this made perfect sense and went back to his toys. At 2 o'clock, Robert's truck pulled up. Michael grabbed his jacket. New, warm, proper outdoor gear provided by the Park Service. "Be good for Nancy," he told Tyler, dropping him at the ranger station daycare. "Learn lots," Tyler said seriously. "Like Mama?" The afternoon passed in a blur of excitement. Roberts taught him to identify different animal tracks, to read signs in broken branches and disturbed earth. "The wolves did you a favor," Roberts said as they examined a fresh print. "Gave you a healthy respect for wildlife, but not fear. That's rare." Michael traced the edge of the wolf print. "They were just protecting their territory. Like I was protecting Tyler." "Exactly." Roberts clapped his shoulder. "That's what makes you ranger material. You understand both sides." They worked until sunset, Michael absorbing everything. His leg barely bothered him now. When they returned to the station, his mom's tour group was just finishing up. She took pictures with some tourists, answered questions, looked completely at home in her role. How was he? She asked Roberts. Natural talent, Roberts replied. Like mother, like son. Later that night, after Tyler was asleep, Michael sat on the porch again. The security cameras blinked quietly, keeping watch. His mom joined him, still in her uniform. Good day? The best. He showed her his notebook, full of tracking notes and observations. You really want to do this? Be a ranger. More than anything, she smiled, looking out at the dark forest. Life's funny sometimes. A month ago, I thought we'd lost everything. Now look at us. A wolf howled in the distance. Another answered. Natural sounds now, part of their world. I saw them today, Michael said. The pack that attacked us. And they're beautiful. When you're not having to fight them, she laughed softly. That's my boy. Finding the good in everything. The moon rose over the trees, silver light catching on the frost-covered grass. Their new house glowed warmly behind them, full of life and comfort. Mom, are we going to be okay now? She pulled him close, kissing the top of his head like she used to when he was Tyler's age. We already are, baby. We already are. Inside, Tyler called out in his sleep. Not scared, just checking they were there. Me? Mama, we're here, they answered together. Always would be. Not just surviving now, but thriving. Growing stronger with each new day. The wolves howled again, their songs echoing through the valley. Michael closed his eyes and listened. Not monsters anymore, just voices in the night, reminding him of how far they'd come, and how far they still could go, together.